No Jumper, coolest podcast in the world. And today we got Big Court in here. Very excited to get the inside scoop on you, my guy.
I appreciate you having me, brother.
No doubt.
Yeah, this is a milestone for me.
You feel that way?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Coming to No Jumper.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like you got your own thing going there on the internet, man. You're building up a whole big ass following yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But I mean, honestly, you one of the ones that inspired me.
I got in there early.
Yeah, really early. You ain't glad.
Glad. That's what you call him?
Shout out to Crunchy Black.
DJ Glad. Yeah. No, Glad painted the portrait or the picture for sure early on before a lot of us understood. I feel like he takes a lot of the lumps and he gets a lot of the hate for shit that everybody does now. Everybody does the provocative titles. Yeah. Vlad was doing that before. It was the thing, you know? Yeah,
he spearheaded that. You know what I mean? A little bit, towing the line of the clickbait and the truth and a little bit mixed in with some cap. Yeah.
But now everybody's having to learn that language.
That's a science in itself.
Yeah. Like AD is a co-host on here. He has his own podcast on here and everything. And now he's got his own Twitch channel and he's got his Clips channel. He's got his Twitch and then he's got his Clips channel on YouTube. Yeah. And he's having to learn the way that you do a 2-hour live stream, and then you have to zero in on what are the two most interesting things, what are the three most interesting things, and how do I title it to make people curious about what it is. And this is something that we all kind of are in the same boat in that regard.
My podcast is not even a year old, and I'm still tinkering and trying to master that because it's all in the caption and the thumbnail. Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's the wording, all of that little shit you got to learn.
Yeah. I hear a lot of people say, title and thumbnail is 99% of it.
It is.
Which is scary.
Right.
The content could be that insignificant, which I think it is in the long run, but at least in terms of that first initial click, what is in the video is a lot less important than how it's being presented to the people at home.
Exactly. Because once you got them, you got them. You got the click. You know what I mean? So
100%.
Hopefully the content, is captivating enough to keep them.
Definitely. So, okay, let's go back to the beginning of your whole story. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing and whatnot.
Well, I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri.
Right.
I'm 70s made, 80s raised. I know I don't look that old, but, I am. I had a beautiful childhood, bro. I'm, an only child. I was raised by strong women. I was raised single mom. I was raised on love, not survival. Education was a focal point in my household.
Okay.
So I had a beautiful childhood, actually.
Wow, that's good to hear. Yeah. There's so many people that come on here who have just the most traumatic childhood stories that it's almost kind of shocking to hear somebody say that their parents did a good job.
And I'm from the hood, you know what I'm saying? But fortunately, I didn't have to, go through that part of it in my formative years, you know what I mean? So I really didn't jump off the porch and really experience the streets until, I kind of became a recalcitrant teenager, probably around 13, 14.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's when life kind of took a turn for me.
So what was that like? You were pretty happy to just go to school and be a normal kid up until that point?
Yeah, if you think about it, man, most, gangster rappers, they'll sell you the shit. These niggas will sell you the shit, but nobody came out the womb gang banging and hard. All of us was playing with toys and riding bikes and doing regular kid shit.
Right.
Even with a level of dysfunction in the house. That's just the truth. I think for me, coming from the Midwest, the influx of crack cocaine in the 80s, so now the environment becomes hostile. So you have to adapt, and then we have the influx of gangs. My neighborhood became a Crip neighborhood.
Okay.
So now I'm dealing with that.
Really? And was it just like this all-consuming thing where all of a sudden the violence is just crazy and you're seeing people with money or
Yeah. And what it was is I'm seeing the dope houses. I'm seeing cats roll up with their 30s and Vogues and they Turkish ropes with the anchor on them and the nugget rings and all that shit.
Right.
I'm a kid, so I'm not really understanding what's going on. But what's happening is with the emergence of gangster rap, so NWA, Ice-T, they're providing context of what I'm watching. You know what I'm saying? So I'm getting the game from them, and I'm kind of seeing little things. And when it really hit home for me was when I was 13. One of my friends accidentally shot one of my other friends on the 4th of July.
Wow.
So that was the first time I kind of seen,
Shot him or shot and killed him?
No, we shot and killed him.
Wow.
It was an accident.
Wow.
Yeah.
And were a lot of people that you knew playing with guns around this time, or was it like
that was
total shock?
That was isolated. That was an
Really?
isolated incident. Yeah, it was a complete and total accident, and we thought it was fireworks. We didn't even know, you know what I mean? What
So you were
had happened.
around, or
Yeah, we were playing basketball. They were right a few yards away from us, but one of the other homies was throwing firecrackers. You
Wow.
know, so we thought it was just a firecracker, but the gun went off, hit his aorta. He tried to run home and collapsed in the street.
really? And he died
13
very
yeah.
quickly after.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
your friend ended up going to juvie or something? I'm assuming.
No, it was an accident.
Really?
Yeah, it was an accident.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm always interested in that sort of decision for a young person. When you think about like a 5-year-old boy, it's a kid, you know, you don't
Right.
expect anything of them. And then all of a sudden usually around like 13, 14 or whatever is when there becomes this transition. It happens even younger, I guess,
Yeah.
in like urban areas or whatever,
Exactly.
where all of a sudden you have to be able to protect yourself, protect your family. And you start to sort of like inherit these ideas, sometimes
Yep.
due to necessity, sometimes just because you want to be that person or you think that this is like an important part of growing up. And it's always kind of fascinating to see how many different people react to it.
To be very honest with you, if dudes are really keep it 100, you adapt out of fear. You know, just to be 100, because you got to think, I was an only child. I never had to deal with bullies. I mean, my mother, she was an alpha female, so she raised me aggressive as well. But you know, who was I gonna call? There was nobody to run home and tell.
Right.
You know, so what happens is, at least for me, when I start seeing, you know, back then niggas was getting jacked for Jordans and starter coats and shit like that. So, you know, you become fearful. So what you do is, you know, you like, okay, I'm not gonna be victimized. So you tool up, get your little pistol or something, and in a sense, you almost start perpetuating that same element that you're afraid of. It
Right.
starts getting good to you. You know, you shoot at a couple cats, do a couple little moves, win a couple fights, and you start seeing the adoration that comes with that, the respect that comes with that, you know. And so now you inevitably start becoming part of the problem that you was probably fearful of.
Right.
You know, that's how it happens for a lot of people in the hood. Like the same thing with being a gangbanger and being gang affiliated. I was very much gang affiliated, but that's just because of where I grew up
Right.
and my homeboys, you know. So you get sucked into the shit. So it's a really destructive cycle when you look back on it and think about it.
It definitely is. So,
It builds character, but you know, it's a destructive cycle.
but so you didn't formally join a gang, but you were just kind of associated with one.
I was raised there, born there.
Okay.
So, you know, I wasn't like in Kansas City, the politics is a little bit different. To some degree, no disrespect to my city or any other city, because I ruffled a few feathers when I said this before. The gangbanging in other cities to some degree is watered down.
Okay.
You know, it was adapted. You know, whereas in LA, you know, it's 50, 60 years.
Right.
You know, we really didn't get, when I speak specifically of Crips and Bloods, till the 80s.
Right.
You know, so it was a different, you know, you really didn't get put on, so to speak. You know, it wasn't this jumping in type of thing, and especially no DP shit. No,
Right.
you're not gonna get that off.
So, but you didn't know that at the time. That's just something that you can say now, having like observed so many different cities and everything.
Yeah. It was just, I grew up there. Now there was a clique that I ran with called Southside Posse,
Right.
which I'm from the Faux Block, which is in Midtown, Kansas City. They were out south.
Right.
They were a Crip gang as well. So, you know, it didn't help I was affiliated with 2 Crip neighborhoods.
Right.
But yeah, that's just what it was then. You know, you adapt. And so I ain't never banged on nobody like, you know, yeah, cuz this whoop. Nah, that ain't me.
But so looking back at it, you can identify that
Yeah.
you were kind of fearful of all these things that might happen to you in the
As a
streets
young
at that
kid,
time. So that's
yeah.
kind of why you
As a
got
young
more
kid.
into the streets.
Yeah, as a young kid. And then, you know, also it exposed things inside of me I didn't know that were there as well.
Right.
You know, I always say I can understand like your darkness because I understand my own. You know what I'm saying? So I know what my natural proclivities to bullshit is. So I know, you know, you're a man just like me. You flawed, so you got them too. So it exposed some little things in me. You know, like I learned early on, like, you know, I was with that pistol play. You know,
So you just weren't scared in that regard.
no.
And like you talk about the incident with your friend shooting your other friend. And then only a couple years later, all of a sudden, this is the norm for you, and you got used to it?
Yeah, well, the environment, it was just, I got used to the environment. At that point, you start losing friends. I had a friend, Jermaine, he got killed by 2 of the other homies over a bottle of cologne. Really? They wrapped him up in a carpet, put him in the alley.
Right.
I had another homeboy, Lamont, got killed. It just started because in the 80s and the early 90s, it was real active there, So, like I said, the environment becomes hostile,
right.
And so I inevitably start perpetuating that bullshit, and I went to jail at 15.
15 for what?
Attempted murder, shooting into an occupied dwelling, burglary. We hit a gun store.
You robbed a gun store?
Yeah.
So how do you go about robbing this gun store at this point in time?
This is an impressionable 14, 15-year-old mind. You remember the first Lethal Weapon?
Vaguely.
Okay.
It's been a while.
Okay. So there was a scene in the movie where Gary Busey was in a car that ran through the front of a store.
Okay.
Right? So I'm sitting there on the couch, and it just dawned on me, because we had bullshit guns back then. Anybody from the hood know back then you was lucky to come up on a 380 or a 25 or some type of cheap ass High Point or Lorson or something like that.
Right.
So, like now they got Dracos and all of this shit. Back then, they had SKSs, poor man AK, shit like that. So I was like, man, we need some better guns. Mm-hmm. And so as I seen that car go through the front of the store, I felt like we could really do that shit.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So
this is less of you being an impressionable kid and more like you were actually devising the ideas.
Yes. Yeah. Still impressionable, but right. I always say I was a follower, but not of an individual, of a destructive culture. So I was, pretty decent at stealing cars back then. I was always a smart kid. I was always did well in school. Yeah,
that's the problem. If you're a little too smart and you have that criminal gene or whatever, all of a sudden, you kind of do the math in your head and you're like, well, I'm going to pay attention in school for like 12 fucking years and then go to college and then like all this bullshit just for what? You know?
And you can execute, when you have a level of intelligence and discipline. I was always disciplined too, but I came up with this cockamamie scheme, and me and 3 other of my homeboys, we did it. We stole a car, we ran it through the front of the gun store, and we had brand new assault weapons and pistols and all that with the price tag still on it.
So you got out of there, just took off running, and was there another car?
No, we had another car. We had 2 cars.
Right.
Yeah. So, we basically stole a car. We wedged a board in between the gas pedal and the seat, ran it through it in drive. It was a Celebrity. I don't know if you remember the Chevy, the Celebrity. Okay. Because those cars was easy to tilt back then.
Right.
You know what tilt is?
Well, no, what's that?
Tilt is when you break the steering column. You break the left of the steering column, you hit it with a flathead, pop the little ring off, pull it up, yank it left and right, and you be off like that.
I can't even drive a stick, so it's
shit.
Foreign to me.
I learned how to drive on a stick.
Yeah? Yeah. I always thought about it, but I'm like, if anything, it feels more like we're not even going to be driving our own cars in the near future, so probably kind of pointless for me to learn now.
Yeah.
Fuck, but okay, how long did it take for you to get caught doing that?
So, no, we did that shit like 2 or 3 times. I hit that same store probably about 10 days after that, because what happened was we were 15, 14 years old. It was a minor oversight. We realized we didn't have any bullets to the guns, and we weren't old enough to buy ammunition.
Right.
So we had to hit that motherfucker again for the bullets.
God. Whenever I go to the gun store here, there's a couple of employees with guns on them, like on their side or like in a bag on their chest or whatever. I'm picturing someone driving a car through the front of the gun store. I'm picturing the employees shooting at you.
No. This was 1 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, so nobody's even there.
No.
Okay. I was thinking that too. I'm like, are you just gonna drive into some fucking guy who's standing there?
No. Actually, one of my homeboys that I graduated high school with, he actually did that later, years later.
In the middle of the day.
Yeah, he went and tried to rob the same gun store that we burglarized, and he ended up shooting it out with them people.
Wow.
I mean, it's a gun store. Who the fuck gonna go rob a gun store like head up? Like, that don't make sense. I knew better than that. But we hit it. It was a hole through the front of the store, so they had 2 plywood boards up and shit. I walked up there and pulled it off and hopped in.
Wow.
And got some more guns and got some more bullets. Bullets. Yeah.
So how'd you end up getting caught?
The car, my homeboy's car that we used we did a bunch of other shit too.
Right.
His car was hot. We didn't know. you know. So we were riding one night, hunting, looking for some shit to rob. And the police got on us and stopped us. We had 4 of the guns that we took in the car. They matched the shell casings to like other little different shootings and different things like that.
And so was that just a complete surprise to you that they were going to be able to link the guns that you had to that?
Man,
like
listen,
you're young enough that you didn't even think about the fact that was going to happen?
They had my shoe print.
Wow.
They took a thing of my shoe print in the store, and I had the shoes on. Like, I mean, I'm 15. Fuck, you know what I'm saying? I did the best I could, you know what I'm saying? So,
oh man, I always wished I had got the chance to be a criminal like in my 30s, because I feel like I could be so good at it now. But I was doing illegal shit when I was like 14, 15, when I was a fucking moron.
Yeah, but let me tell you the tragedy in this. The thing about it, man, all of us came from beautiful homes.
Right.
You know, even though we was in the hood, we came from beautiful, loving homes. None of us really wanted for shit. So we really didn't have to be doing that.
Right.
You know, it was kind of like we was thrill seeking for real. I mean, yeah, we needed the guns because we are still dealing with the element. But, you know, it's not like we were starving and, you know, shit like that. I mean, even though you know, that crack cocaine shit touched my household in the 90s. And so I had to kind of go through that. And then I had my first child at 16.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, you know, my sense of urgency and trying to figure shit out was moving really quick.
But think about it like this. If there was an older dude who had told you to do that, you would look at him like he sent me on a fucking dummy mission. And, you know, it was that foolish. You thought that up for yourself because you're so young that you didn't know any better. You know, and it's kind of like, when you think about it like that, that's why it's a real shame, is that the average kid who gets caught up doing something like that is going to have to deal with the consequences of it, being on parole and probation for the rest of their fucking adult life, and potentially.
That almost happened to me. So I was actually, that year, they were trying to figure out what to do with juveniles that committed adult crimes.
Right.
So they were going to certify me. They were going to give me what they call juvenile life, keep me in juvie until I was old enough to go to prison to serve out my sentence. But juvenile court at that time worked a little bit different. It worked kind of like family court. So they take into consideration these other variables. So, you know, I had a gainfully employed father and a stepmother. I always did really well in school. So my lawyer was able to kind of paint this picture that I got mixed up with an older crowd. I was the youngest person on my case, you know, so he painted this picture that I got mixed up with an older crowd and just kind of was led astray and all of that. That wasn't the truth, but
You're actually the mastermind.
Yeah, there it is. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I always had a baby face, so that helped too. You know, I always looked really young and innocent, and I was the worst in the crowd.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they let you off easy, or
no? So I ended up I was in juvenile for about 7 months. Then I got put on house arrest. The state took me from my mother, made me go live with my dad. I didn't really grow up with my dad, so at the time we was just kind of like 2 niggas named Courtney living in the house. And so, which was an awkward transition, because I remember my DJO came to me and she said, "I got good news. You're gonna go home." I was like, "Okay, cool." She said, "Yeah, so they're gonna put you on house arrest over to your dad's." I was like, "Fuck that, I stay here." Because at that point I became, you know, acclimated to juvie. You know, juvie had, you know, good toast. And we used to play basketball for toast. I made friends in there, you know. I kind of became, I guess, institutionalized.
You hear that a lot from people that like they don't hate it. And it's almost kind of simpler than their life on the outside.
I was tripping at that time. But what it was is I didn't have that connection with my dad, and you know. But I ended up going over there. They had me on house arrest for about 6 months. But all worked out, man. I ended up graduating from high school on time at 17. I didn't necessarily stop my criminal endeavors, but I didn't do crash out shit like that. You know what I mean? And then that's when I started getting into music.
Okay.
Yeah, I really started pursuing music at that point.
Okay. And so what? How, you were just a lot more safe about breaking the law, or you just got a better perspective? Because I mean, you're locked up with all these kids. You're probably talking about scams and schemes with them, right?
Well, back then, you know, it was really, like I say, I really wasn't on no getting money shit then. I was really just more or less, I mean, I hate to say it, I was more or less just a shooter. You know, I got away from that because it was really just dumb shit. You know, it really wasn't over nothing. So I kind of, and then you got to think I had my child at 16. So I really started focusing on my kid and my girl. And like I said, my music career. But I started kind of flirting into getting money, more of the hustle side of it, you know, and trying to be quiet and stay out the way.
Right.
I mean, and I still had my bullshit and my run-ins and different things like that. That's inevitable. But, you know, God smiled on me, bro. I had a lot of people praying for me, too, because, you know, I'm really not that smart to get away with all the shit I got away with.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
see, I think, too, the culture, I was a different type of dude. Like, some of these, like, and I'm not going to say all LA guys, but like sometimes when I watch the content, they celebrate going to YA and going to prison. Like I wasn't that type of dude. Like the point of it is to get away with it. You know what I'm saying? Like you went to jail, that means something went wrong. You know, like that means somebody it fucked up somewhere.
Yeah.
So I was never that type of dude that was just willing to crash out. You know, I always knew it was something more for me. I didn't know exactly what, but and then I had aspirations of going to the NBA too. So I was an athlete. I forgot to tell you that too.
We're going to talk about the music and all that. But yeah, it is interesting because I see the way that someone doing, you know, 6 years in prison just really like augments the way that you think about them. And then in comparison, on the other hand, I have some friends who are in gangs. I assume have been on all kinds of different street shit their whole life, but they never got locked up. So it's almost like they only get so much credit for being in the streets, which is a strange way to view it.
It is. I mean, listen, of course I can't say any names, but I have some friends that I grew up with that got bodies. I'm talking about damn near serial killers that never been to jail. And their names don't ring out like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because they wasn't doing it for that. You know, they did what they had to do. It is what it is, you know, and that's kind of the cloth that I came up under. You know, I didn't really come from the whole, you know, you just bragging to tell everybody that, you know, shit like that was necessary. Because
now our brains are so attuned to social media that it's almost like hard for us to imagine doing something that is deserving of respect or whatever. Even in this street situation, it's kind of disturbing or whatever. But I mean, it's almost kind of hard to even think of that. And one example of I was watching a video, a documentary about some street shit, and I don't even want to say where, but they're asking these guys about a murder of one of their ops, and it was like, you could tell that it was like almost impossible for them to hide the fact that they were proud of the fact that they knew who did it. The guy was standing right here. This guy, you know, and then it ends up that they all get caught up for it. And it's like, in retrospect, that looks so bad. But like, you know, in a different time, if somebody were to bring, number one, you would never even allow someone to ask you that question on camera. And if they did, that you would just keep a straight face. And but I mean, these days it's hard for people to get away from the fact that they just want credit for their accomplishments.
Clout, man. Clout is a drug, you know, really and we're here in a day and age where if it's not filmed, if it's not caught on video or a picture or, you know, somebody who can substantiate it didn't happen. You know, and yeah, I'm not from that generation, you know. No, I'm not from that.
So you get into music how? Who was influencing you at the time?
Shit, Eazy-E, Ice-T, and some local people from my city, Money G, Pure Dope, Tech Nine was doing his thing, Vel Bacardi.
Right.
Yeah, so some locals. Vel Bacardi was the first person from Kansas City that got a major deal. He was on Yo MTV Raps.
Right.
Yeah, and that made me know that it was possible.
Wow, all right. So how do you even go about getting your feet wet in the game?
Well, I was a part of a group called CCG. My partner Cisco, he was a producer. I met him in 9th grade.
Not Cisco with the silver hair.
Nah, not him. No,
that'd be a plot twist.
Nah, and he used to jack people for equipment. Yeah, he used to jack people for their equipment, and he was just the one that stuck with it. You know, we started off, it was like Wu-Tang, you know, but at the same time, I'm playing basketball too. So I'm kind of, you know, I can't even say duality because I'm trying to figure out the street hustle shit. I'm playing basketball, and then I'm into this music shit.
Like a lot of young men just trying to figure out anything that might possibly work.
Exactly. Right. Which was crazy because, I mean, hell, I was always smart academically, man. I could have been a doctor or some shit if I had just chose to do that or applied myself.
Well, there's no sexiness to that, right?
Right.
It's not like being in the streets where it's like you just feel like, you know, if you spend your whole childhood, when I look at my youth and stuff, I mean, the fact that I was so susceptible to getting into, you know, even just shoplifting and scamming and shit like that. I mean, I fucking spent my whole childhood listening to these guys telling me how great it was to be a gang member and a career criminal. Is
Yeah.
it any surprise that I was actually susceptible to that?
They trick you into that though. That's the trick, you know, especially in the black community, man. Like, you know, if you think about it, we're, you know, the music, and trust me, I love gangster shit. I loved all the NWA, all of that shit. You know, I can be a cheerleader for foolishness too, you know what I mean? But it's like we so brainwashed to be so destructive, you know what I mean? And we're so heavy-handed and callous toward each other. And we see it, you know, permeating through social media now. I was tripping on that because I'm like, damn, other genres of music and other cultures, you don't see them on Clubhouse like you see us. That's my biggest problem with the now. You know what I mean? Like, it's man, the discord is so fucked up. Really.
I don't think that the people who invented Clubhouse thought that this was going to be the market.
Right.
And
Right.
I don't know if there's like
Right.
a lot of other people using it, but
Yeah.
it's kind of strange how that became like the
Yeah.
main thing that we know it for.
Man, I'm a B100. I don't like Clubhouse. I haven't been on it in over a year.
Right.
But I was going through some of the other shit. No, there are actually productive fucking rooms in there. There's
sure,
actually people on there using it for what it's used for. It's only us. I think it's on, and I'm probably gonna get in trouble for that. But just from what I've seen, it's only the urban community and the rappers, you know, and the wannabe steppers and all the gangsters, the wannabe internet gangsters that's on there. That's doing the bullshit.
Yeah. That is pretty wild.
That's just what it is.
State of affairs.
Yeah, it is. And that's what, like, when I created my platform, like, that's what I just wanted to balance the shit out. Like, I'm kind of the antithesis of that type of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, again, I'm not perfect. You know,
Right.
you know, I'm not above some bullshit here and there, but, you know, I try to be better and do better.
Okay, but so give me an overview of how the music career went and like what led up to you meeting up with Master P and everything.
So we were making some tapes in Kansas City doing our thing.
Okay.
And man, I just didn't want to be local. You know what I mean? So I used to send tapes to like all the big companies back then, the Jives and the Priorities and shit.
Right.
And they would send that shit back saying that they don't accept unsolicited material. I didn't know what the fuck that meant, right? I'm like, what? You don't, you know, so Kansas City had no industry. I'm like 17 years old, you know what I mean? So so something in me just said, you know what, send this shit to some smaller labels. I didn't have the verbiage of independent. I didn't know what that was, but I knew that Rap a Lot and Black Market up in Sacramento and Dog Day and Intermittent in the Bay and these labels for some reason just seemed like they were reachable, accessible. So remember back in the day with the CDs and the tapes, they have all the addresses and the numbers and shit on there. So I would send tapes out and Master P, No Limit, at the time he was in the Bay. So I would fill up his voicemail. You know, he had just a benign voicemail, and I would call that bitch back to back to back to back so nobody else could leave voicemails. And just like, yeah, I'm Court Dog, I'm from Kansas City, woo, 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 and hang up, call right back. I sent probably about 10 tapes to everybody. Like, that's how ready I was, how hungry I was. Right. And so got his attention, you know, and he heard the tape, he liked it. At the time, Bone Thugs and Harmony had just come out. I think Thuggish Ruggish Bone, Creeping on the Come Up was real big. This was right before East 99, like 94, 95.
Oh, so they're in the lead up to them becoming huge.
Yeah. And so I'm from the Midwest, so our style was in the vein of that.
Okay.
So, you know, P was like, fuck y'all, my versions are Bone Thugs.
Really?
Yeah. So he called my dad's house. I was actually sitting on the toilet stool, and and the phone rang. And it went to it was answer machine back then.
Right.
And so I get up the second time and waddle to the fucking phone and answer the phone. And he's like, can I speak to Courtney? I'm like, he ain't here. Cause you know, my dad's name was Courtney and I didn't recognize the voice. And so he was like, all right, tell him P called. So I was like, no, hold on. I said, this is me. And so he kind of laughed. Was like, what, you dodging somebody? You got bill collectors or something? You know, I don't think he knew how young I was. And we started from there. And so we talked for probably about a couple weeks. And he sent plane tickets. He said he was doing Down South Hustler. So that was the first album that we were featured on. We did the song R.I.P.
Because Master P wasn't like huge at that time, right?
No, he had his regional spots. He was just bubbling. He had just did the deal with Priority.
He really blew up in like 97, 98.
That's when he really
right. That's when he's on MTV all the time.
Yeah,
and shit,
right. But this is right before Ice Cream Man, because I remember hearing the Ice Cream Man instrumental in the studio when he flew us out to the Bay. Yeah.
Wow. And so I mean, what was it that stood out about you? Do you think it was your force of personality, or do you think that your music was genuinely good at that time?
Maybe a little both.
Okay.
I think what it was is me and P hit it off from the gate. We're kindred spirits. You know, we were both athletes. Neither one of us smoked and drank. You know, we were both very disciplined and focused. And we just clicked as friends. You know what I mean? So I think the friendship is what solidified the other shit, really. I mean, because looking back on it, my partner was very much more talented than me.
The guy you were in the group
The guy
with?
was in the group with
Okay.
Cisco. Yeah,
Right.
he was way more advanced than me. I was more the business guy and the visionary and the mouthpiece of the group. So I think P, he just saw that in me. And yeah, I mean, we were good though.
Right.
Yeah.
When I met Master P, and this was like kind of early in me doing podcasts, so it was sort of like, you know, I was extra like blown away because I hadn't really been around that many famous people, but I remember, you know, SUVs full of dudes pulling up to our store and just like all guys wearing all black, just pouring out of the car and just posting up all over the alley. So by the time Master P drives in, these guys have already scouted out the whole area. They know that there's no bullshit about to happen and everything. And I was very kind of taken aback. I hadn't seen anything like that at that time. And yeah, even just the force of his personality, like he was just so, not even like super serious, because he was nice and he was capable of laughing with us and everything like that. But there's just such an aura about him that like, holy fuck, this guy has seen it all and he is not fucking around at all. Was that the vibe when you met up with him for the first time, or were you kind of on the same level?
Well, you know what? The thing that I think about it, because I was an only child. P, you know, he became my big brother.
Okay.
You know, so yeah, but when I met P, he was a gangster, straight up. That's why we hit it off.
Right.
Like when I met P, he used to keep 2 Glocks on him. Like he was wild back then.
Right.
You know, we've all evolved since then, but yeah, you know, we spoke the same language, you know, and he had a vision, and it was work ethic. And you got to think, I'm from Kansas City, so at that point I had never been in a real studio.
Right.
I had never, you know, now I'm in the studio with K-Lou and you know, Beats by the Pound. I'm in a real studio, so I know a lot of the youngsters ain't gonna know this, but you know, they had reel to reel and shit like that. Like before that, we was just recording on 4-track recorders and shit.
Right.
So now I'm in state-of-the-art studios, and so it was a hell of an experience, because you got to think he took us from 0 to, you know, to 10.
Did
like
it level
like
your
that.
music up a lot right there? Just
It did.
being with
It
fire
did,
producers
but
and
it
everything?
was an adjustment, because I'm from the Midwest, so a lot of the music that we were used to rapping over was like the Bay Area shit,
Right.
the West Coast shit. With Beats by the Pound was giving that bounce, so it was a little bit of an adjustment with that. It was actually kind of difficult for me, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Was Master P ever, did he ever send you to go have a talk with somebody? Do you have that kind of relationship?
Nah.
No? Nothing like that?
Nah.
He just wanted you to be an artist?
Well, yeah. I was a kid back then.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now, as we got older and our relationship evolved, and I start wearing different hats with no limit. I mean, you know, I went from the artist to executive positions and wearing many other hats as well.
Right.
But no, I wasn't always built like this. I played point guard, so I was a skinny dude. I looked like the 6th member of Bone Thugs back then.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
you weren't fucking working out at that time?
No, I didn't pick up a weight till I was 30,
30.
Yeah.
And you're how old now?
46.
Jesus Christ. I hope I look like that at
Yeah.
46.
My oldest child, my daughter's 30.
Wow.
Yeah. My
Mind
daughter
blowing.
graduated college and everything.
Holy shit. So you're a grandfather?
No,
Oh,
she
not
ain't
yet.
had no kids. No, not yet.
But
Not
maybe
yet.
soon?
I don't think, not by her. No, because
okay.
my oldest daughter, she like to travel and shit. She's selfish. She don't.
Wow.
She want to do what she want to do.
Does that kind of piss you off? You want to be a grandfather?
Nah, I ain't got time. I told all my kids, because my son's 22 and my youngest daughter is about to be 17.
Right.
So I told them all, hey, daddy ain't got time. I'm young, shit. You
But
know
I
what mean?
realized that when I was talking to T.I. is that he's produced so many kids, and
Yeah.
now he gets to sit back and have them create grandkids.
Yeah.
And he gets to enjoy the cuteness and the fun of having
ain't there yet.
a little kid to hang out with, but then ultimately he's not the one who has to fucking
Right.
change the diaper
Right.
and shit.
Right.
That's a pretty cool position
And I
to
think
be in.
I'm older than T.I. So I ain't there yet. I told my kids, look, man, They can drop them off to my old lady, you know what I'm saying? But daddy on the road. We still on a No Limit tour. I got my podcast. I still, you know, I'm a young guy.
Okay. Yeah. So how long are you working with P, and how does that end up leading into you starting to do more of the media side of things and YouTube?
Oh, shit. You got to think, man, I've been with P since I was 17. So you're talking about 26 years, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, so we go through the phase of the music shit. I do some independent shit. I actually got into doing film production. The first movie that I did was with me and Cat Williams.
Right.
I produced a movie called Young American Gangsters. I used my own money. I used like $250,000 of my own money.
I heard you say that, and that you kind of got ripped off on the deal.
No, I broke even.
Right, but then they ended up making a bunch of money off
they
it.
did. Yeah, they did. Yeah, because I didn't know anything about the business. I just had the money to do it.
Right.
You know, but I started. The other thing about it, I start kind of preparing, and this is fucked up. I almost start preparing for prison in my late teens because I started buying real estate. I bought my first house at like 19, 20 years old in my investment property, but it was in case I went to jail. So I'd have something to borrow against or something to help get me out of jail.
Right.
You know, so that was my whole thought process going into it. I knew I had no concept of real estate, equity, leveraging, none of that shit. That didn't come till years later. So by the time I got to about 25, 26, when I moved out here, I had like 13 properties free and clear.
And how were you making money at that time?
Hustling.
Really?
Yep,
so
hustling.
You were doing an excellent job, it would seem.
I had music money and I had hustle money.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, I was always disciplined and smart, you know, and I wasn't afraid to try shit, you know. So I took L's too. But by the time I got to like my 13th property free and clear, I had a lady at a local credit union. She taught me about the leveraging and the equity. So she ended up getting me a $500,000 line of credit over my properties.
Okay.
So I was able to, you know, really build up off of that to where like now I have over 40 properties.
Right.
But that shit started in my teens and my 20s. But it was all starting from me preparing for jail.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting though that you just kind of started collecting retail properties. Like a lot of times people will ask me like, you know, like what are you into? Like what do you do with your money or whatever? And I'm like, really nothing, but you know, I bought a house. I just bought a new office building. You know,
nice.
I haven't really thought about like what it would be like to own, you know, like 10 properties instead of 2.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's definitely an option. It seems like a pretty safe one.
It is if structured correctly. You know what I mean? Because all these properties are they're scattered. Some are in Missouri, some are in other states, but it's the management of them, you know. And I took some L's too. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the L's because all that shit comes with success. Success is a culmination of failures.
But you didn't have the mentality of, oh, I'm going to do a fixer-upper type thing. You were like,
that's
no,
what it was.
I'm going to get it and I'm going to keep it and rent it out long term.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Fix it up and rent it out long term.
Yeah, because I always had money, so I was just doing it for the residual income. I was like, okay, I don't need to sell it and flip it or nothing like that. Because you got to think I was hustling.
Right.
So I was like, okay, what is my safety net? You know, if I fall off, I get jammed up, you know what I mean? I still want to be able to have a certain amount of money coming in a month.
But isn't it a concern that the bank doesn't want to give you a good loan once you already own 1 or 2 properties, that they want you to put down like a way bigger percentage when you buy more?
No.
Not really?
It depends. I mean, investment properties at that time, they did want you to put like 10% down.
Oh, because this is pre-financial crash, so they were probably a lot less strict.
Yes,
huh?
they were less stringent. Yes, you're right. So, but I took L's in that crash shit though. Yeah, I had some shit in Atlanta, man. I got like 6, 7 foreclosures, about 4 short sales, and I took a L in Encino. I owned a house in Encino. I took a L on too.
But when you moved out here, I think I heard you say that you kind of stopped doing the real estate so much because it's so much more expensive out here and harder.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it out here. I couldn't afford to do it out here. I didn't see the win.
Right.
You know, because back in Kansas City, I mean, shit, you got to figure. I was buying properties for like, this was my business model. I would buy a property for $10,000 to $20,000, turn around, put another 10, 15 into it. You know, it probably appraised out at $80,000, $90,000. I rent it out $600, $700 a month. Now it's doubled now because of gentrification, but at that time, $600, $700 a month, and then I thought of it like weed because that was my hustle. So with weed, you know, it was a volume game. You didn't
pay off your whole investment in a couple of years, right there.
Yeah.
It's all profits.
Right,
soon
but
after,
these properties were free and clear. You know, I didn't have a mortgage on them.
Right.
Yeah. So
you were just buying them cash.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was doing everything cash.
Would this be a lot harder to pull off now because I feel like the real estate market's so much more competitive?
No. You just got to spend more.
So your mentality is still on like make money, buy real estate. That's still your mentality.
No, I don't want no more real estate. I'm done with that shit.
What kind of stuff would you more likely to do now?
Now I've gotten older, so I'm more into just doing things that I enjoy. You know, so like I have a supplement that me and Master P that we have coming out called True Body Milk.
Oh, nice.
You know, I enjoy the podcast, like with the Holding Court podcast. I enjoy being a content creator.
Right.
It's something that I didn't even realize, a skill set I didn't realize I even had. Because me and P, we actually had a talk show called Doing the Most on Playboy Radio about 5 years ago.
Okay.
So that's where that seed was kind of planted. And he told me, him and Jay Tweezy, they were like, man, Corey, you kind of good at this. I was like, really? And they were like, yeah, you know, you should try your hand at this. So during the quarantine, that's when I was like, fuck, I'm watching you, I'm watching Lled, I'm watching Gangster Chronicles and Drink Champs and all of that.
So during quarantine was when you actually got serious about doing this.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I remember hearing that you couldn't order podcast mics on Amazon. They were all sold out because so many people started podcasts during the pandemic.
Yeah. I didn't even do mine like that because my partner, producer Ken, you know, he's a producer out here. He's done Real Housewives and all of that shit.
Okay.
That's my guy. We've been down for about 20 years and we had always talked about doing it, but I shoot on a soundstage. So my shit's kind of like yours. You know what I mean? Yeah, I had the stage built and all of that. You know, we got the control room, the cameras, all of that shit. So yeah, so we did it like that.
It's interesting because I feel like we've seen a lot of people kind of come in and out of the No Limit orbit over the years. What do you think it is that kept you tight and through all these like changes that obviously Master P's, it seems like his attention kind of like goes in different directions and it hasn't seemed like it was super focused on music for a long time. Even I remember when I interviewed him that we were talking about his kids and their music and Master P's attitude seemed to be like the music game is all fucked up right now. I don't even encourage them to put music out right now because with streaming and everything it's all fucked up. And I remember thinking like he's kind of like traumatized because he made so much goddamn money selling CDs that now he can't even look at the Spotify check without being like, this is bullshit.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, his reference point of success and money in the music game is way different. Yeah, exactly.
CDs, that's beautiful.
So this little shit, he like, fuck, I'm not finna be working and doing all that shit for that little shit. So his reference point of money is different. And I mean, I think it's friendship. That's my brother. You know what I mean? So for me, it wasn't about No Limit being relevant. It wasn't about selling records. It's not. Percy and Courtney were gonna be friends regardless. You know what I'm saying? So it's really brotherhood. It don't matter what because you got to think No Limit went through No Limit, new No Limit. It's No Limit forever now. Then he went through gutter music. It was all kind of shit. But that's my partner. So whatever play he puts in motion, shit, that's what we doing.
So we think of all these different artists who've been with No Limit over the years as being like, oh, like they're rapping together. They must be friends. Yeah. But you guys were actually friends, so that's kind of why it's managed to.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I'm an only child. So him and Boz, you know, that's like big bro, you know what I mean? And I'm close with Silk as well, and Mr. Servon, and Beats by the Pound. So I think, like I said, it's just brotherhood. But No Limit is like a university too. You know what I'm saying? You come, you do your time, you know, you make what you're gonna make, you learn what you're gonna learn, and then you graduate and go on to do other things. You know, so like Snoop is still fam. Mystical's still fam. He's still on tour with us. You know what I mean? So you have a lot of people that were artists that, like I say, some of them are on the No Limit tour, but you know, they still family.
It's just interesting because, you know, a lot of times you'll see people who are tight because of very specific circumstances that they're under at that time. Right. And then stuff changes. Like, you know, you were all about being an artist at one point, and so it made sense for you to be associated with Master P because he's a big artist and he's going to help you get your career going. It's very out of the ordinary for then the roles to completely change where you're focused on other stuff, but then you still are in the same friendship position.
Of course, because the friendship is first. You know, it's not contingent upon what you can do for me, what I can do for you. Like, we're literally brothers.
Right.
Walking, you know, going through our journey in life. That's it. Like, you know, he's went through different phases of doing different things as I have. And we support each other. You know, however, whatever you want to do, this what you want now? This is what we doing? Okay, cool. Oh, you want podcast shit? Okay, cool. Let me know if you need something. Matter of fact, when you interviewing me, you know what I'm saying?
You ever think about leaving from under this umbrella and kind of going off on your own, or has it always just been obvious to you that
I've always been on my own.
Right.
I've always had my you know, I'm autonomous like that. So I've always had my own, like my real estate ventures.
Right.
I had a supplement, True Muscle Sports, before him and I did this. You know, I have other business entities outside of that. No Limit is just, like I said, it's family. You know what I mean? So I still have my own identity, but it still comes back to No Limit, you know, under that umbrella. So it's the same way with him. You know, P is synonymous with No Limit, just like with Jay-Z. When you think about Memphis Bleak and all them, no matter what they do, no matter what Jay-Z does, you're always going to think Rockefeller. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it makes it kind of hard when the owner of the label is also the biggest star that the label has ever had.
Right.
So then any artist that you sign and start trying to develop, it can be difficult because you know, it's going to be hard for them to even get to the point where they can kind of compete with you.
And that can be an issue sometime. And No Limit, I mean, Snoop was a big star. Mystical was a big star. I mean, Silk had his own lane. C Murder, you know, so everybody was able to etch out their own lanes and have their own identity, you know, and it's still like that now. Like No Limit, we haven't dealt with music in years, you know, like P hasn't been concerned with music in, I mean, seriously, in probably 15, 16, 17 years.
Right.
He's played with it, you know, from here and there. He'll get the bug. Because, I mean, he come from hip-hop, you know what I mean? So every now and again, he'll get a little bug and be like, man, I just want to fuck with it and do something. You know, not so much lately, because he's really kind of evolved in this other space of doing product, and he's on this Reginald Lewis shit, you know? So, but yeah, you know, music is just fun for us if we choose to fuck with it.
It's interesting because, you know, the position I'm in, same thing with him, where I could think of a lot of different ways to make money at this point in my life. And a lot of those ways don't increase my cultural currency, basically. Like, they're things that could make me money. I could even advertise that to the world, but hip hop's not going to give a fuck. And there's a lot of things like that. Whereas also, you know, if Master P, I don't care if he made $100 million this month. If he signs an artist who turns into NBA Youngboy, that will make the culture treat him like, oh my God, this career resurgence, etc. Even if maybe he is not even making as much money as if he was putting his time into something else. It's kind of rap is sort of weird like that.
It is, and I think the young rappers, they got to understand not to be so myopic and so short-sighted. You know, most wealthy people are wealthy because they have multiple revenue streams. You know, and sometimes you can have different businesses like you. You could have 10 other businesses that aren't associated with you, and they'll probably be more successful because they're not associated with you. You know what I mean? Because, you know, you have your haters, you have your even your people. Sometimes your fans only want to see you a certain kind of way. They don't want you to break out of that box. You can come up with a dope ass product, but they don't want to see Adam like that. You know, they only want to see you here.
I mean, like, your fans might love you, but if you decide tomorrow that you want to sell fishing gear,
exactly.
I mean, hey,
they're not gonna buy that shit.
I wouldn't be surprised if your Instagram photos of you out fishing are the ones that are not really getting that many likes, because
that's what I'm saying.
I mean, how many of your fans care about fishing? Probably not that many. Same with me. I love poker. Turns out most of my young hip hop audience doesn't really give a fuck about poker. So I have to kind of be mindful of that. Like, I'm not going to tweet about some random drama in the poker world because they don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, you know?
But if you had started it like that, if you had incorporated that poker element in what you do, then you would have brought along those like-minded people in building that in your, you know, audience.
So then you're faced with the question as a content creator is, do you go to the stuff that you know is going to get you the best return in terms of views and stuff, or are you more true to yourself, and are you able to sort of do something in the middle?
Exactly. I think that's where integrity comes in, because you can wrestle with yourself, you know what I mean? Because, like, even with content, like you say, the incendiary shit is what moves the needle, the controversial shit, you know, so we could get wrapped up in that. I mean, you do a little bit, but you can lean more into it if you wanted to and really be fucked up. And, as I could, you know, because I've had opposing influencers come on. I've had Bosco come on. I've had Crip Mac come on, right? And I was very cognizant of what I allowed to be shown and what I said to them, because, yeah, it'll be good for my YouTube shit and for my content if I just feed the bullshit, but then when the shit spill into the street, I'm nowhere around. You know, I'm in my house in the hills chilling, but I fed into that shit, you know. So I think there's a level of responsibility that comes with being a content creator, especially when you start flirting with street shit.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of perverse incentives in the game. In the sense, I've seen a lot of real gangsters who are doing things on the internet that I would have never imagined that they would be doing, and they think it's normal now because the game has changed so much. I'm not even talking about just self-snitching or whatever, which is kind of obvious that you shouldn't be snitching on yourself, which everybody still does. But even just stuff like talking about somebody else's relationship or talking about somebody else's beef or whatever in a way that I'm kind of surprised by. You know, me as an outsider, I feel like maybe I have some leeway to talk about that kind of stuff. But I see dudes who I know are really from certain neighborhoods and stuff, and they're doing stuff that I kind of know that if you were to ask them 2 or 3 years ago, would you have that conversation on camera, they would have said no. But because they realize now, me having that conversation means I'm going to make $1,000 extra on YouTube. I'm in there. I'm talking about it.
And the thing about it is, I mean, the content becomes like, I get it, right? It's you blur the line with entertainment. Like, I can deal with a level of trolling. It's funny. I get it, right? But I think when the content becomes very acrimonious and hateful and personal, I don't think it's worth the click. Because, see, I come from a generation where you got to pay for your words with your ass. Pause. You know what I mean? So when you say something, you got to stand on that and be willing to either die or be killed in behind it. I don't think it's worth it to monetize your channel for an extra $1,000. You know what I mean? Because and the thing about it, a lot of these content creators, you know, quote unquote, are really parasites. Because what it is if you think about it, they can't, there's no talent. Motherfuckers ain't got no talent. They really can't create anything or create any meaningful content. So what they do is they create bullshit or they latch on to other content, spin it. Like I see that a lot with YouTube channels, like with the Clubhouse shit. They'll get that shit and remix that shit like a Puffy record, you know what I mean? And then, you know, put it up and monetize it. You see what I'm saying? But
all the time,
you know, but they don't understand the ripple effect of that, because a lot of motherfuckers are dumb, man. A lot of people, they believe that bullshit on YouTube,
right?
You know, and you know, this shit get real. Motherfuckers get killed on live all the time, you know, and over posting social media beef, and you know, it's not worth it to me for a click.
Yeah. Has there ever been anything that seemed like a close call to you where somebody was maybe talking shit or saying something controversial and, you know, in your head, you're kind of like, this is a close one. Like, I don't know if I should post this. Or
absolutely.
Maybe I'm not going to title it as aggressively as it could. You know, maybe it's acceptable if I title it like this. But if I make it sound aggressive as fuck in the title, then that's kind of scummy.
I had a situation with, I was placed in a very precarious position. I had a situation with Freeway Rick like that.
Okay.
Because my brother, Big Boz from No Limit, he came on my show. So he was recounting that in 1984, he had caught a case, a dope case. And he basically was just stating his facts and his reality, you know, and he kind of alluded to the fact that, you know, Freeway Rick was in his paperwork. He didn't say that he told on him. He didn't say snitch, he told on me or nothing. He just said, I always wondered why he was in my paperwork. But it made sense. He was dealing with some guys from LA that was dealing with Freeway, you know what I mean? So when he came on my show, he said that. I knew when I clipped it out, I was like, okay, you know, I'm kind of towing the line right here. But I said, you know what I'm gonna do? This is my brother. This is his truth. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to fuck over Freeway. So I'm going to stick to exactly what the fuck he said. Let's stick to the facts. And what he said was, I caught this case, a Fed case. Freeway was in my paperwork. I don't know why, because I never met him. I just stuck to the facts and let it fly like that. Okay. So that was me, you know, exercising my integrity, you know, like, okay, I'm going to let my brother tell his truth, but I'm not going to fuck over this guy. Because I could have said, You know what I mean? I could have been like, oh yeah, he said dude snitched and woo woo woo. And so I end up on the phone with Freeway.
The scummy version of that title is like so and so talks about Freeway Rick Ross snitching on him, like as if it happened. To use the word allegation is very polite in this situation. To say, you know, to not even say snitching, to just say
I never used that word.
To say
never
Freeway
used
Rick
it.
Ross allegations.
No,
you know, maybe you
I didn't say that
because
that's not what he said.
Okay,
all he said was, man, he was in my paperwork. I don't know why. He didn't say what he said. He didn't say any of that. He just said I never understood. I didn't even know who he was until later on in life. I was like, oh, that's the dude that was in. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that was the thing. But so I was on the phone with Freeway probably maybe 2 hours later when the clip went up. Yeah.
And he was concerned.
Yeah, you know, rightfully so.
Right.
It's all fair.
One of the most serious allegations you can have.
Yeah. And I told him, I said, listen, OG, I don't have. I was 9 years old. You know what I'm saying? So I wasn't doing that to fuck over you. You know, I have no issue with you. I said, my brother has no issue with you.
Right.
This is shit that he been saying and been knowing just privately, right? He didn't have this shit 84. It's 30 something years, almost 40 years ago. So I'm like, so it wasn't said like, and he understood. He was very diplomatic in it. He was like, no, I get it. You just doing an interview. You know, he was like, but you know, if he's going to say that, then it needs to be a certain kind of way, you know, come prove it, you know? And I was like, okay, you know, and, you know, no big deal.
You ended up taking the clip down or?
No, I left it up there.
But you titled it.
I titled
politely,
it.
so.
No, I titled it appropriate from the gate.
Right.
But this is what, like, but speaking to what you said, you know, I could, if I was thirsty and I didn't have any integrity and I didn't give a fuck, I could have just really just fucked over the whole situation.
Right.
It's been shit that Crip Mac and Bosco say and do that I could really just go there. You know what I mean? But I edit some of that shit out.
Right.
Because that's not what I'm the antithesis of that bullshit. I think we can have fun. I think we can bullshit. We can troll. We can talk shit. We can enlighten. We can do all of that shit.
Right.
But we don't have to create the divisiveness and the discord to where it spills out over into the street. Because everybody's not playing. Everybody don't get this internet shit.
Like I had two different situations that I handled differently that were slightly different. I went to a hood in LA, and while I'm there, a random gang member, like an older guy, started dissing a dude another gang member who had been on my channel and just saying, fuck him, he's a pussy, tell him to come here, I'm gonna do this, this, and this to him. And I said to the cameraman right away, I'm like, don't use that. Because I don't feel like we can go into a fucking famous neighborhood in LA and just allow someone to be using our camera as a platform to basically say something that realistically will probably make motherfuckers shoot at each other.
Exactly.
On the other hand, we were in O Block in Chicago the other day, and one of the dudes says, hey, and fuck all them other dudes that Adam be interviewing. You know? It's a little bit more subtle of a shot in general. I mean, I didn't really think that was anything to cut out because I'm like, obviously you guys don't like your enemies, but you didn't even say their names and you were vague about it. So I was like, I'll let that rock. Right. I felt like those were two kind of different situations.
Yeah. And the same thing that I said with, and let me say this, you know, even with, cause I know I'm learning these motherfuckers in the comments. I'm learning. Even with Crip Mac and Bosco, there was nothing, it was just the trolling, the jokes that I thought could be taken out of context. So I just want that, let that fact remain. You know, it wasn't like they was in there, I had to edit out threats or no shit like that. No, it was just shit that I said, okay, motherfucker, I could see where somebody might twist that. So let me just throw that out there.
But where do you see, like, what's your approach to doing podcasts or doing content? Like who did you start out interviewing and who do you think that you want to focus on for the most part?
Man, I got to start out with my bucket list, Adam, to be honest with you. I started out, you know, I've had Ice-T on the show. One of my biggest interviews, you know, Ice-T, man, that's the OG. That's my guy. He ingratiated me. He received me. You know, I can call him for game. I can call him for advice. I grew up on Ice-T. That was the first gangster rap record I ever heard was Squeeze the Trigger. So that was an honor. I had Jay Prince, you know, come on the show. Same thing, of course, you know, being under the No Limit umbrella and him and P always having a solid relationship, which I had my own as well. I had Little Eazy-E. Because I was such a big Eazy-E fan, that was the closest I could get to that, to his essence, you know. So having his lineage, having his son up in there, who also I have a relationship with. That's my homeboy. Shout out to Lil E. But I like to have Magic Johnson and Mike Tyson.
Magic Johnson, you don't see do a lot of podcasts.
He don't.
But he fucking would probably be an incredible interview at this
Absolutely,
point.
man. I think just his experience and the game he got in the business world,
Right.
man, like that's the type of shit that I like to, you know, feed my brain with. Don't get me wrong. I ain't all staunch like that where I don't like the bullshit, but
Right.
Mike Tyson as well. Yeah.
But it's interesting seeing somebody like you who has been out there really living your life and making all these connections organically, not thinking that you were ever really going to be calling in favors or
Right.
whatever. And then you
Right.
come into the podcast
Right.
game and are able to get a guy like Ice-T who
Yeah.
realistically, there's probably only a couple of podcasts in the hip hop world that Ice-T is going to
Exactly.
bother to give a fuck to even go sit down with him for an hour or two. You know, he knows his time is very in demand. He knows that he doesn't need to be giving the sauce out for free to all these motherfuckers. So you know, it's interesting seeing you be able to make that call. Whereas I'm sure there's a lot of other people. I would love to get a Ice-T interview, but I'm not necessarily sure what you got to say to make Ice-T interested.
I'm gonna hook you up, Adam. I'm gonna plug you, brother.
You know, right after I gave birth, well, not I gave birth, but right after my girl gave birth to our kid, when I'm bringing my kid down to the car to go back to the house, the guy who was helping us out, who worked at the hospital, also informed me, he's like, you know, I play in Ice-T's band part-time.
Oh, damn.
And he gave me the spoiler about Dr. Dre eventually putting together the halftime show.
Yeah.
He told me about that like fucking a year and a half before it happened.
Yeah.
And it's not like it benefited me in any way to know that, but I thought that was kind of cool that he told me about that before.
No, that was dope. That's dope. No, I had, and I actually had T-Rail too.
Really? Oh, yeah. I've seen that. Yeah,
and you know, this is the thing about it. T-Rail was my neighbor. When I say neighbor, I'm talking about right next door to me.
Like recently or
no?
back in the
This
day?
was a few. Let me see, maybe 3. He was my neighbor for about 5 years. I lived in that house up until about maybe 3 years ago.
Right.
But he was my neighbor for about 5 years, literally next door. I could. Yeah.
It's funny because when T-Rail did that interview, we're all talking in the group chat, and he's like kind of new to going on other people's podcasts. And shit. I think that might have been the first one that he ever went on outside of our little universe here.
It was.
And he's very much like, you know, all right, so I'm just like supposed to show up. Like he's just like he's kind of like wondering exactly what this is going to be like. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
And it's crazy because me and T-Rail, we didn't speak. I mean, we nodded to each other and different things like that, but we never spoke. Wow. He's when he came on the podcast, because P and Silk I had a studio in my house. So he said it wasn't until he seen P. No, he saw Silk and he fanned out because he was like, I was a big fan of Silk.
Really?
He said, I seen Silk at your house. I was like, who is this nigga over here?
So many people still say that. AD said the same thing.
Yeah.
When I interviewed Silk, he was pissed that he wasn't there.
Yeah, real talk. I had Silk on the show as well.
Right.
Yeah. You know?
That's dope.
And I think having Michael Jai White too. That's a friend of mine, but I was a big fan of Michael Jai White. I still am, even with him being my homeboy.
Right.
You know, I might be in Black Dynamite too.
Right.
Yeah.
You trying to get more into movies and stuff?
I've done some movies. We're about to start working on a Christmas movie right now.
Really?
Yeah. So I've done a few movies.
What kind of movie? Like, I mean, there was like such a amazing history of like hip hop films for a long time.
Yeah.
And now it kind of feels like that just doesn't exist the way that it used to, where like there are these big films that everybody knows and talks about. You know?
Bro, that shit wide open. You got to go to Tubi. Tubi, yeah. Tubi TV got all the fucking hood movies.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, all the iPhone movies, all of that shit.
They make iPhone movies as
fucking
well.
Right. I don't know what their deliverable list look like. Yeah, they let anybody in that shit. Yeah, Tubi got all the hood movies.
Is that where Boosie hosted his as well?
No, he did his on his website, I believe. But Tubi is where, that's where all the hood movies, even a guy from my city, he's got a movie called Drought. And a Drought too, and hood, all the hood shits on there.
I bet if I made a movie and had T-Rail and Crip Mac in the movie, then I think I could make $1 million off that movie.
You think
so? Sell it for $5.
But can you get it done without some bullshit kicking off?
CGI.
You got to shoot they scene. Yeah, that's what I'm about to say. You got to shoot they shit separate. Some green screen shit.
But the clickbait could be them both in the poster. Maybe I'm overestimating how many people would want to see this, but I feel like a lot of people want to see that.
Yeah, I don't know, but you know, T-Rail is a good dude, man. You know, I think he's I didn't realize how dope he was till he really came on my show, and I thought it was a shame because we lived next door for so long, you know, for about 4 or 5 years, and just, you know, he's dope.
That's the funny thing about him is that he's very focused on not hyping himself up.
Right.
Like he doesn't wear his accomplishments on his sleeve so much. He kind of keeps it to himself because he just appreciates people who are more low key and cool about shit.
Yeah.
And sometimes I see that where, like, you know, we've been having the conversation about like graphic design and who can put a photo shoot together better. And he's like basically saying that he would whoop our other homie Blasi in a competition of putting together a photo shoot or putting together a design or whatever. And I'm just like seeing how confident he is. And I'm like, but you never tell us about what you've done in this realm. And he gave us a little snippet. Yeah. But I'm like, oh, damn, like you're like the one dude on earth who's fucking being humble about their accomplishments out here in LA.
Man, like T-Rail, man, he's so unassuming. Even when I lived next door to him, like he didn't make a lot of noise. He just, and the first time we met, it was crazy because Uber Eats delivered his food to my house. So I just happened to look outside, I see this shit, and I'm like, this must be they shit. So I walk over there, knock on the door, and it's funny because he came to the door and I was like, man, I think this is for y'all. He was like, oh yeah. He's like, man, I appreciate it. They messed up. It was cold and shit. And so I went to shake his hand. And and so he said, and he said, oh yeah, this one fucked up here, my bad. You know what I mean? But he kind of laughed at himself. And so later on, you know, when I got a chance to know him here recently, I was like, man, that's dope. Like, dude, he don't take himself so serious. You know what I mean? But he's got good energy.
There's a clip that is on the No Jumper Clips channel where he talks about how Gucci Mane got offended because he gave him the left.
That. He did. That's what he did with me too. Yeah, because I guess he seen the look on my face. I was like, what? Okay. And he was like, yeah, this fucked up.
But it's crazy because there's at least 2 other people that I can think of in hip hop who have like either like a busted arm or like they can't use their arm or whatever.
Who are those 2? You gonna say them?
I'm just gonna not even say, just because like they don't seem to really advertise it. I don't know if people really know.
Yeah, I know one right off the, but I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah, I just don't want to like bully anybody or whatever. But it is kind of like a weird thing to have to deal with. I'm sure.
Yeah.
My attitude on it was always like, oh, something horrible happened to you that is not in your control at all. I'm not going to make a joke out of this or anything. AD and DoKnow completely on the other side of the spectrum there. They just were going. But that ended up being like a thing where they ended up having to have a conversation on the podcast about like, hey, maybe you shouldn't just make the same mean joke over and over and over to your co-host every week.
Y'all probably need some sensitivity training up in this bitch. But but the thing about it, I think if the other person is willing and open, it's all good. You know, T-Rail's a good sport. You know what I'm saying? Because even when he came on he was low-key trying to roast me on my podcast.
About what? What did he go with?
For one, I had on a fitted shirt. So he was, you know, talking about, boy, that shirt tight as hell and, you know, all of that shit. But, I mean, all in fun. All in fun, you know.
Well, when did you decide to get serious about your fitness?
I think like I said, around 30. Okay. That was part of my getting the cell block ready mentality.
Even then. But you never did a real bid as an adult?
No, by God's grace, no, I didn't. No, that's what I'm saying, man. Like I tried to avoid jail at all costs. You know, I moved a certain way. When I knew I was doing wrong, I took every measure to prevent that, you know. So no, you know, by God's grace, you know,
But so okay, you start. What motivated you? You just wanted to look better, or what do you think it was that was driving you?
No, it was. I was getting into different arenas of entertainment. I was doing acting. I started getting into doing movies. I always had a athletic build because I played basketball. And what it was is I actually just started just to get like I guess what you want to say, a bedroom body. You know what I mean?
Just to look good for the ladies?
Yeah.
Okay.
From my beach
body?
Yeah.
When I used to read bodybuilding message boards, that would be a way that they would diss somebody. They'd be like, yeah, he got a beach body.
Exactly. No, real talk. We look down on that shit when you become a mass monster.
And I was reading it like, man, I wish I had a beach body. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Nah, we call that shit sexy flexy. Like, look at this dude, he's sexy flexy. Like,
but so you look down on a motherfucker who don't have like that real size on them? Okay.
Yeah. Look, well, when you really are entrenched in that bodybuilding world, yeah, you kind of look at that shit as like some pussy shit.
So
but
you got super into that world for
yeah,
a while?
what it was, I took it on as like, I had my goals initially. I started out, I'm 6'3", so I was 180 before I lifted a weight. And I got to 200 really quick. My body responded. And so it just became a lifestyle and a hobby. So I started challenging myself, like, let me see if I can get to 210. Let me see if I can get to 215. And it just kept going. So by the time I got to, like, I'm 240 now. So I'm good. I'm good now because, you know, I like to stay agile and, you know, and then, you know, I'm 46, man. My joints and my bones is a little bit different.
Right, because at a certain point, doesn't it kind of become like not ideal to be carrying around so much muscle? Have you seen the negative effects of like being kind of too big? Or
no? Well, maybe at a point initially when I wasn't stretching adequately, you know, and I was tight. So like getting up off of the ground was like hard, you know, because I was so tight and stiff. But I'm not as big as I was at a point. My body composition changed a little bit. But then too, you know, my genetics, I'm an ectomorph. You know what that is?
You put on muscle easily?
No, actually hard.
I'm
a skinny guy. Yeah,
okay.
I'm a skinny guy genetically, you know. So I could feel it in my knees and my joints and my hips, you know. So yeah, I kind of slimmed down a little bit. And then I got mature muscle at this point too.
Right.
You know, so but it's a lifestyle for me, you know what I mean? It's more about, you know, feeling good, and it's not just the bodybuilding part, but it's also, you know, I take care of the inside, you know, preventative health measures. I get my physicals. I get physicals twice a year because of my my genetic makeup. My mother passed away at 56. Most of the people on my mom's side don't live out their 50s. You know what I mean?
Thinking about that with the Kevin Samuels thing.
Yeah, real talk.
Is like,
exactly.
He seemed to me like he was in great shape.
Yep.
I don't know exactly what his lifestyle was like, but even the little things can be really fucking risky
Real
as
shit.
you get older.
Especially us as black people, because we already are predisposed to so much, you know, health shit. So I think like I was almost my A1C was elevated. I went and got a physical. I was pre-diabetic, had no idea.
Wow.
But just going to go get a physical, I was able to curb that and fix that before it became an issue. So and this is why I use my platform. Like, again, I had Chico Brown on. We talk gangster shit, we talk dope prices, we talk street stories and war stories, but then, you know, I also try to educate the people as well. You know what I'm saying? So you can put the medicine in the candy as well. So that's what my platform is. Like, I talk about the working out because people always ask me, like, what's your workout regimen?
Right.
What's this? What's that? So I share all of that.
Are you the kind of guy who you're just going to lift weights either way because you just love it? So even if you aren't focused on a specific goal, lifting weights is just part of your week? Or do you take breaks from it?
I take breaks just by necessity because of my scheduling. You know, we on the No Limit Tour, you know, the podcast, all my other business ventures. But for me, I think it's an outlet because, like I said, I don't smoke or drink. I don't really have any vices, you know, so it's an outlet for me. It's therapeutic. I do it. A lot of people think that when you're in shape, you just love going to the gym. Most days I don't feel like going either.
But I do know some people who are like that.
Yeah.
And it fucks me up because I'm like, yo, there's things that I'm like that with playing poker, with fucking podcasting, whatever, like making content in general. Like, if you put me on a fucking desert island with an iPhone, I'm going to make YouTube videos, you know? I know dudes who, no matter what happens, they are going to get up and go to the gym that day if it's the only thing they do. And I respect the fuck out of that, but it must be really easy to be in shape if you've got that kind of brain.
I mean, I was like that initially, like the first 4 or 5 years, but at this point, I'm just maintaining. So it's more of a mental thing for me, you know. I think just, you know, you look good, you feel good, you're confident. It's more maintained. When I was trying to build and thinking I was gonna be like Ronnie Coleman and shit, Phil Heath, then I was on it.
You did steroids at any point?
No,
you never did it.
Never did steroids. This is a funny story about the steroids. When I first started working out, my guy, I worked out with an OG bodybuilder, so he was telling me like, man, you take this, you take that, you know, and I was willing. I was like, for real? I was like, man, give me some of that shit.
When you're excited about getting bigger and you're like, that's gonna make me bigger, fuck it.
But let me tell you what happened. So I'm thinking it's a pill. I'm thinking, I'm gonna take the pill. When he said, yeah, and I get you some pens, I was like, pen, what's that? What's pens? And he was like, oh, the needles. that killed it for me right there.
Really?
I was like, oh fuck, well, I ain't gonna be able to do that.
Just not
You know
into
what I'm
needles,
saying?
or
Oh fuck no.
or does it just remind you of like heroin too
I
much?
can't.
Like that's some junky shit, right? I think to a lot of people, the needle is the scary part.
But that's
like they would eat a pill, but
the
they're not gonna do
heroin
the
is
needle.
the insulin needle. It's a little small one where it's subcutaneous.
Right.
The steroid shit is the inch and a half needle. So you got to stick that shit intermuscular
In your booty meat.
butt or your shoulder or wherever the fuck they do it. I wasn't finna do that. I don't like going to the doctor to get a fucking shot. So I'm definitely gonna stick myself.
You're better off having not done it. For
Right,
sure.
right.
Because
I have no regrets.
You hear about dudes, bodybuilders dying at like 45 years old all the time now.
Even recently.
Yeah, there's been a bunch recently.
Yep.
And
even
Cali
recently.
Muscle put out a big statement saying that he doesn't think anybody should get into bodybuilding like that, which is crazy because it comes from such a positive impulse.
Right.
I want to lift weights and eat good.
Right.
It's the best thing you could do for yourself. But then if you want to take it to the extreme, if you want to be the biggest guy, you got to start doing stuff that's unhealthy for you.
That's true, but the other side of that is think about it. I think it's like with anything else when it comes to abuse, because I'm 46, so I understand that by the time I'm around 50, my early 50s, your testosterone dips, you know. So I'm going to have to get on some type of testosterone therapy, even if it's something that releases, that's a time release, or go to the doctor and get a shot. So testosterone is healthy.
Right.
I think it's when. I don't think it's necessarily the actual steroids. It's the diuretics and the other shit that fuck them up and blow their kidneys out.
Insulin shit.
And so when you're doing it at those high dosages for an extended period of time, that's what fucks it up. So it's not just, you know, like a lot of the older gentlemen in my gym, like, you know, these guys 65, 60, ripped the fuck up.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
You see
But
those
they'll
dudes,
tell
they're
you.
red and swollen.
Red,
and
they
you're
got
like,
they got the leather skin and
yeah,
shit. Yeah,
that shit blows me away. I'm like, so this is like your retirement plan right here. You just want to spend your life looking like a big old tomato.
Hey, but I know they tell me, they be like, yeah, I go to my doctor, you know, I get a shot of tests once a week, once every 2 weeks, but that's to get them baseline. So that's healthy, you know. So you want to start. I understand. At 50, goddamn it, I'm gonna do what I got to do.
But you also are probably always, tell me if I'm wrong, but you seem like your genetics are good enough that people might like have thought you were on steroids even though you
I get
weren't.
that all the time.
So I mean, that's a pretty blessed position to be in, where people think that you're that big, but then also you don't have to take the risks associated
real shit.
with it.
I used to get offended. But you know, I got older and I'm like, okay, that's a compliment that you think that my physique is that advanced, that is enhanced.
You never
know?
thought about competing back in the day?
No, never. That's not for me. No.
Seems like
I ain't finna
weird
get up there in
world.
no fucking Speedos.
Once you
and
get
shit.
that extreme with it,
No,
with the
no.
fucking like black body paint, the
Nah,
tanner that
nah,
they
that
put all
ain't
over
me.
themselves.
That ain't me.
And then they don't put it on the head, so the head's a totally different color.
I just wanted to do it enough to, if I got to get active, I can handle whatever I got to get active with, and just to, you know, my old lady like it, so you know what I mean.
okay.
So it's all good.
When you first got into it, were you with the same woman that you're with now?
Yeah, I've been with the same woman since I was 15.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
How's that going?
great.
Never wavered? There was never any breakups or anything? It's always been solid?
Since I was 15, brother.
You're a loyal guy, dude.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not perfect. It hasn't been perfect. No relationship is. You have to work through it. It works because you want it to work. You know, you're willing to put in the work. Man, it's an anomaly because I don't have a reference point of a marriage, of what it looks like to be a husband, of I don't have a reference point of any of that shit. Right. So, but I knew I had a good woman even as a kid, and she's a little older than me. So, yeah, man, hey, it's an anomaly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, I managed, like I said, I was never, you know, a born to lose ass dude. You know, I tried to do my best, even in my bullshit, you know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, I don't want to make it seem like I'm perfect or nothing like that, because I've definitely made my mistakes in life in general. But yeah, you know.
So as a content creator, how do you view your role when it comes to sort of calling somebody out for something? Because I noticed that when Whack 100 had some words to say about Master P, basically saying the Master P is broke now, that I don't think P necessarily responded, or did he put out a statement? No, but you were quick to rise to the occasion and let him know how you felt about it. Like, what was your thought process on that?
Well, I mean, for one, that's my brother. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you come at him, you come at all of us. You know, and it was bullshit. You know, that's innuendo and hate and all of that bullshit. And yeah, I just think that it's like I said with the the type of content that dude traffics in with the, you know, interjecting the divisiveness and the negativity in the culture, that's more what I was speaking to. It wasn't necessarily, it was him because of what he said, but it was more, he's like a talking head. It was more to the people like him as well, you know, just addressing that. Man, we ain't got to do that. Like, I think some of the people, there got to be some rules in place. Like, I think our Jay Prince's, Master P's, our Jay-Z's, you know, our leaders of the culture, man, something got to be off limits. You know, and I'm saying just to show them respect in what they have done for the culture. Now, I'm not saying you can't have an opinion on what they create. Like, if you don't like some chips that P made, or you don't like a shoe that Jay-Z got, that's fine. That's all subjective, right? We get that. But in terms of trying to attack their credibility and who they are, like, that's whole shit. You know what I'm saying? That's whole shit.
I was confused by that one because I was like, that's, broke is definitely not the vibe that I got. Master P pulled up on us a few years ago.
No, fuck no. And broke is relative. I mean, think about it. Elon Musk can say to Oprah, "You broke, bitch." You know, that don't mean she broke. You know what I'm saying?
I wouldn't be surprised if he said that at this point,
right?
Just because he'd be wild.
He live in a motherfucker. But I'm just saying, like, you know, so again, you can't, in order to be able to call somebody broke, you got to have more money than them. You know what I mean? So, you know, Pete probably done lost more money than dude ever made in his whole life, you know, and probably ever will make, you know, and that's just the reality of it. But again, it's not even about that. Like I said, it was more addressing just the state of the culture. And he just happened to fall on at that time, you know, where I could use him as an example.
Did they have a little Whack 100 Clubhouse party about you after that?
A little bit, bit.
Some words.
Yeah, but I don't. I heard little shit here and there, but not for real though. You know, and this is the thing. I didn't address him like a little boy. I addressed him like a man. You know, I never have called, you know, dude a bitch ass nigga, pussy ass nigga. I don't do that. Like, for one, I don't know him to even do that.
Right.
You see, I'm grown for real. So if I feel like that about you, I'm not gonna say that on social media.
Right.
I can find you. I can, you know, we 6 degrees separated. So it ain't nothing to get on the line with you and say, hey, meet me or come to where you at and speak my mind. But it's not that serious.
See, that's one thing I don't like about some of the dialogue that happens in rap is when everything so quickly becomes about ego and about who's the toughest and who has the right to even comment on something, or it so quickly becomes like, well, you're white, so you don't get to say something about this, or you're not a woman, so you don't get to say something about this. And it's like, let's talk about the idea. You know, let's talk about the actual ideas. Gina laughing at me. No one involved in this is a woman. But, you know, it just feels like that's just such a counterproductive thing. Like, let's have, like, real conversations. And even with everybody talking to each other 24 hours a day on Clubhouse, a lot of times it feels like those conversations very rarely get below the surface.
Yeah, and the thing about it, some of the social media sites have to take responsibility, too. You know, because think about it. You know, P's done a lot of great things for the culture. He's worked in the community, giving back to Compton for 20-something years, Louisville, New Orleans, and many other cities. He does a lot of stuff that doesn't get publicity, right? So if dude had said, man, you know what? P is a good dude. You know, he's done a lot in the community. Man, we need to give dude his flowers. Nobody would have picked that up. Nobody would have pushed that. You see what I'm saying? But the minute that it's some bullshit and it's negative, then the other sites will pick up on it and share it, and it starts getting traction. You know, so that's the other part of it that I was speaking to, is like, you know, everybody, like the content, like I said, it becomes so vitriolic, it becomes so acrimonious and hateful, and it's a lot of innuendo. And nobody cares about the truth. See, a lie don't care who tells it. It don't, you know what I mean? Motherfuckers just throw shit out there, and like you said, you got these YouTube remixers that get it, put it up, and everybody trying to monetize their shit.
And so often I see conversations happening on the internet now where it's so obvious to me that the people involved either know that they're talking about fake news and don't care.
They don't.
Or they just don't even bother to look below the surface and see like, oh, this didn't really happen. You saw that happen with the Rihanna and A$AP Rocky breakup where he allegedly cheated on her.
Exactly.
That was all anyone talked about online for the next 24 hours. And then you see an updated story that says, oh, actually, bullshit. They're totally fine.
Yeah.
And you've seen that even with him catching this case, you've seen them together countless times since then.
Yeah.
And it's like, why did the internet waste all this effort and time? It's because the idea was so attractive to people
that
he would cheat on her her, somehow they want that relationship to fall apart so bad because it's just two people who are doing very well for themselves. They seem very, very happy together, and people are just so desperate to find a loser in that situation.
Real shit. People love a train wreck.
Yeah.
People love that, And the thing about it, as I watched Wack, to be very honest with you, I would say up until this Jay Prince shit, I start kind of seeing it differently. I start kind of saying, hold up, this is a business model. This is a business model. I don't think that a lot of the shit that he does is personal. I think he's just willing to take the risk, to get his numbers up, to get his name, popping for whatever he has going on social media. I don't think, that it's like, I just think he's willing to risk it. I don't think it's risky and it's worth the risk. But this is the thing that's sad though, because I heard him say, he said, I'm gonna force your hand. You either gonna have to kill me or you gonna go to the penitentiary. And I thought that was really sad because I'm like, damn, dude is like almost he's a year or two under me. And I'm like, at this point, like that's young nigga type mentality. You should have grown past that. You know what I'm saying? Like you should want to see your grandkids. You should want to be here to live an old age, especially because you reached a level of success. You're not in YA no more. You're not in prison. You beat the odds. You're out the hood. Like, what are you so angry about? You know what I'm saying? And I think casting that into the culture and misdirecting a lot of people, even if it is a business model, because I started thinking, to be honest with you, Adam, I'm like, damn, maybe it was a memo that went out that I didn't get, that all this shit is some WWF shit. You know what I'm saying? And I just didn't get the memo.
Right.
But I think, life and death is in the power of the tongue. And that made me feel kind of bad for him, because I'm like, damn, you can't be happy. So you mean to tell me with the success and the shit you're able to do and transcending all your circumstances, you still upset? What are you so fucking mad at? And I just think that, it's sad. And like I've told people, because people have asked me like, what if you run into dude? And I'm like, man, we live in the same city, but I'm grown for real. So my thing is we can speak or not. We can have a conversation or not. It's just a conversation. I'm commentating on your content and how you do what you do. I mean, it's all up for grabs. That's what we do in content. We talk about current events. We talk about trending things, and it is what it is,
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we're not really seeing that many people get their asses beat over Clubhouse, right?
Right.
I'm sure it's happened.
I'm sure it's happened too, but it's shit brewing. I'm gonna tell you, it's a lot of shit brewing.
Yeah.
And it's some real shit brewing. And I'm gonna stay out the way. You know what I mean? Like I didn't dodge prison. I didn't dodge the dope game. I didn't dodge bullets, all of that bullshit. And I'm not finna go down in behind some fucking YouTube and Clubhouse shit.
Right.
That's goofy shit. You know what I'm saying? That's goofy.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, watching Young Thug and Gunna and all them get arrested yesterday, that really made me like, holy fuck. Everybody, myself and everybody I know needs to be really, really careful about what they say on the internet, what they allow themselves to do or even be close to.
Real shit.
Because you're looking right there at a bunch of millionaires who, and then a bunch of guys who are below them who probably aren't millionaires but have a lot going for them, who all are now in a situation that, to some extent you could say that this seems unfair, but to some extent it seems like this is they kind of created this by sort of advertising a lot of this shit. And, we watch rappers and we think, oh, like it's kind of amazing that they're able to say this in this song and get away with it, even though it kind of aligns with this. And now you're seeing lyrics from 2015, things that happened in the very beginning of Young Thug's career being corroborated with things that happened recently. It's like, wow, maybe everybody should be infinitely more careful with what they put out there.
I agree, bro. I think that, I don't know, man, that's what I'm saying. Us as OGs, we got to help try to, steer these young guys and give them a different type of reference point. I don't understand that. It's like they hustle backwards. You make it, you transition up out the hood, you're able to create opportunities for yourself, for your family, and you still indulge in bullshit. Again, Adam, like we're the only culture that does that. You don't see that with country, with R&B, with rock. You don't see that. Like, and sometimes we're our own worst enemies, and again, we're already targeted. I mean, we can let that, we know that, that's a fact. You get successful, you're young and black, you're gonna be a target, but we make it easy. There's no way in hell why, you know, these guys are millionaires, even if they not millionaires, but you're far beyond where you started, you know, and you in mansions and shit, you touring and you doing all that, and you still trying to knock motherfuckers off and do all this gang bang. It doesn't make sense to me. That shit does not make sense. What you do it all for? You might as well just should have stayed in the hood then, you know, if that's what you're going to do. So it's really short-sighted. And, you know, I don't really know what to attribute it to. You know, I mean, the world becomes, to me, just more decadent and more, I don't know, stupid. I don't know if it's just social media also playing a role, because everybody want that clout. Right. And the bad thing about social media, it's like high school, because if somebody says something to you on social media, it's almost like you're forced to respond because they've said it in front of everybody. You know what I mean? So it's almost like, think about it. If you in high school and a motherfucker say something to you, ain't nobody around, you could probably let it slide or get an understanding. But as soon as you got a crowd, you got noise, then that adds fuel to the fire. Then you forced to do something, like, to say something.
It occurs to me that me and you are in kind of a unique position in our lives where we're doing well for ourselves. We have things that are going nicely, and we're trying not to fuck it up.
Yep.
A lot of people have nothing, and they're just actively fucking their shit up. Or they've made something for themselves, and they still kind of have that urge deep down inside where they sort of want to just light it all on fire. Exactly. Because it's easy and because it's sort of exciting to, like, you know, when you see a guy who's got a whole family and he's still cheating like crazy, or he got another baby secretly on the side, shit like that, and you're like, that to me is the same kind of impulse that causes you to go rob some place at 15 or whatever and just get yourself in a world of hurt, because you're just acting in a way that sort of, to me, proves that you don't really give a fuck about your future.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's like me. Like I tell people, man, if you look back on the shit you did when you was younger and you don't think it was stupid, you're probably still stupid. You know what I'm saying? So if I couldn't imagine doing the shit I did at 15, 16 in my teens doing now. Like I look back at that shit and cringe. You know what I mean? So at 46, no way in hell you gonna hear me say, fuck it. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna die, go to jail. Fuck it. We all gotta die sometime. Like, what the fuck is that? At 46? Like, that's crazy. Yes, we all have to die, but you can bring about your demise. You know what I mean? Prematurely. So, and unnecessarily, there's a whole lot more life to live. And I think that, as we were talking about the guy earlier, I think he could be more of an asset to the culture if he just, you know, just stop with the dumb shit. You don't have nothing to prove at this point. You know, I remember telling Crip Mac that. I was like, bro, you don't have anything more to prove after the DP shit. I'm like, even with Wack, I'm like, bruh, okay, the street shit, we know. We got that. We know. You're not a hoe. We got that. What else can you show us? What else can you do? You know, and obviously he can do other things, but those things are being overshadowed by the bullshit. You know, unfortunately. So you die, you know, and I'm not speaking this on him. I mean, I hope it doesn't happen, but I'm just saying, you know, if you die at 45 or 44, however old he is, what's your legacy from there? You know what I mean? Think about it. Your clubhouse antics and all the bullshit you started will overshadow your accomplishments. You know, that ain't a way to go out. You know what I'm saying? Like, fuck that. If you didn't beat prison, you didn't beat all these other odds, man, you supposed to be able to get on some Jay-Z shit. And you know, Jay-Z ain't worried about all that type shit. Jay-Z somewhere in the Hamptons or in another country somewhere doing big business, you know?
But I mean, the Wack pile-on has been wild to watch the past few weeks. It's like every fucking other day there's a brand new op that he's dealing with.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, man, I kind of feel bad for him in a sense, you know? Again, as I've gotten older and evolved, I start to, because again, I can be a cheerleader of foolishness when I need to be. But, you know, as I've gotten older, I can see the humanity in people. You know what I'm saying? See, when you in the hood, you don't recognize that. You don't give a fuck. It's like your life is nothing to me. You know what I mean? Because usually that's because I don't give a fuck about my own, you know. And so I still think, to a sense, he's stuck there, you know. But I think he's got to figure out why. You know what I mean? Like, why? You know, you got to do your own work and peel back them layers to try to figure out, damn, why am I so reckless? Why don't I care about me? You know, because if I don't care about me, I can't care about motherfuckers around me. You know what I'm saying? And it really, you know, I felt bad for dude when I heard him say that, because it's almost like giving up hope. Even though you have all these opportunities and this money or whatever, you know, it's like giving up hope to say, you know what, fuck it. Because I think he said that. He said, man, I got one more deal. You know, I got life insurance. Fuck it, nigga, take me out. I'm good. I'm like, damn.
I think he's saying that as a challenge, though.
Huh?
He's kind of saying that as a challenge. Like,
I don't think so.
You want to kill me? Come kill me.
Yeah, but
Good
that's
fucking luck.
That's reckless, though, because anybody could be touched, anybody could be got.
Right.
The cemetery is full of tough niggas.
But isn't if somebody were to be on the internet saying, "I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna kill you," isn't your attitude kind of like, "All right, come try me"?
Nah.
No?
Nah, my attitude would
Not
be...
that you actually want them to try you,
Yeah,
but if you choose to do that, then I'm going to deal with it.
Nah, for one, I would be trying to figure out first what the fuck is it about, you know what I mean? And try to get some understanding, you know, of, you know, how is there another route we can take? Because, especially because I'm not living like that, you know what I mean? Unless I done something and I know why you trying to kill me, then it's up, you know? But, you know, like I said, the cemetery is full of tough niggas and the penitentiary is full of niggas who had to show them tough niggas what time it was. So it's a lose-lose situation. You know what I mean? Nobody wins. Like, what's the win is for us to stay free,
right,
and be alive as long as we can to change, you know, our lineage and generations. That's the fucking goal. The goal is not to goddamn make it out of YA, make it out of prison, and then become successful and then die successful, you know, damn near 50 years old.
Right.
That doesn't make sense, you know?
You guys got a chip collection over there?
Oh yeah. Oh shit.
Is
We got
this a project or a brand that you're involved with?
No, that's P shit. This the soldier snacks that we got.
What? We got soldier snacks.
Yeah, here, let me give y'all some of this. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Honey barbecue puffs.
Yeah, we got the soldier snacks.
I got soldier snacks on me. Damn. Made in the USA? I like that.
Oh, them the barbecue.
Oh wow.
Yeah, these are barbecue. So this is, you know, this is what we own now, man. We own the product shit. We got these soldier snacks. And also me and P have soldier bites, which is a protein bite, which is a healthy food, a healthy snack too.
That's dope.
Yeah.
You got him in the gym?
Yeah, a little bit when he want to do it.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
For sure. Damn.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna be enjoying some soldier snacks for sure.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to highlight for the people out there? This was a great conversation, and
yeah,
if they
man,
want to hear more from you, check
yeah,
out your YouTube
I
channel.
appreciate you having me, brother. Yeah, they can check out, subscribe, like, and comment to the Holding Court podcast. Follow me on IG. Follow me. I am Big Court. You know, I don't really fuck with the Twitter thing. Okay. Be on the lookout for. I got a new book coming out this summer called Chronicles of a No Limit Soldier.
Oh, nice.
And I got the new protein with Master P called True Body Milk.
Nice.
And we got the soldier bites, the protein bites, and we got the soldier snacks.
Spicy jalapeno cheese puffs.
Yeah, yeah. So this is
what
what we own.
Protein version of these as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's the soldier bites.
Oh wow, I like how it has an origin story. In 1950, New Orleans native Claude Miller served his country in the U.S. military while pursuing his passion for cooking and baking a wide variety of food and snacks. Miller was a well-known baker in his community. Today, snack lovers call it pork rinds. His grandson, Percy Miller, continues his legacy through Claudio's.
Exactly.
Wow, so that was his father or grandfather?
That was his grandfather.
Okay.
Yeah, that was his grandfather. So so a lot of people don't know that's where the tank came from. The whole concept behind No Limit in the military in the tank was from P's grandfather.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yep.
That's really cool.
Yep.
In
So
loving
this
memory and in honor of Lieutenant General Pedro Augusto del Valle, the first Hispanic to reach the grade of general in the Marines. So does each flavor pay tribute to a different veteran?
Exactly.
Wow, you guys got some cool ideas.
Yeah.
Man.
So this is what we pushing right now, man. So we all about positivity. You know what I mean? That's why I'm glad you gave me the chance to speak on that. And even with that other situation, you know, I have no malice or acrimony toward anybody, you know, either him. I pray for him, you know, Wack. I pray for his family, you know, and anybody that's stuck in that bondage of, you know, just discord and anger and all of that shit, man. You know, I pray for all of them. So we come in peace, you know what I mean? Now we are soldiers, you know what I'm saying? Don't come fucking with us, you know, but, you know, at this stage of the game, man, listen, I got grown kids. You know, I just want to maintain being successful, being healthy, and I want all the younger generation to do the same thing.
Definitely.
So that's what I'm about.
Excellent. I appreciate it. We
Thank
need more
you, Adam.
positivity
I appreciate
like that.
you, brother.
Big Court.
Hey, appreciate it, Adam.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks so much.
Yep.
Big Court. Check him out on his YouTube channel and all his other endeavors. No Jumper, coolest podcast in the world. Check us out on YouTube, TikTok, Patreon, Instagram, all that shit. Like, comment, and subscribe. NoJumper.com if you want to support. Appreciate you.
Salute.